بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Over the past couple of weeks we have been looking at the Islamic topic of at'imah, about food in Islam, and I mentioned the importance of eating halal and eating pure, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, فَقُلُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا, which means that eat مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ, that which we have provided you, حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا, something which is halal, tayyib, something which is pure. And I mentioned the spiritual implications of eating haram. How a person's ibadat, how a person's worship, how a person's namaz, how a person's muamalat is affected by eating haram, by eating things which are not lawful and not permissible. And I also mentioned under this topic those types of foods which are lawful and permissible to eat, and also some manners and some adabs and etiquettes regarding eating, in terms of sitting down to eat, using your right hand to eat, using 3 fingers when it comes to eating. So these adabs and etiquettes were touched on in the past few lessons and the past few weeks with regards to the topic of at'imah. Now in today's lesson we're going to move on to the next topic, which is the, you could say, opposite of at'imah, but it is something which we do alongside at'imah, and that is the Arabic word ashriba, which means drinks. So the same way there are adabs and etiquettes with regards to eating, there are also adabs and etiquettes when it comes to drinking. And the same way there are certain foods which are haram and unlawful in Islam, similarly there are also certain haram drinks in Islam. And the same way there are certain food which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam liked, as mentioned in the hadith of Sunan al-Tirmidhi, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam liked tharid. Now what is tharid? Tharid is where basically you break the roti or the naan, you put it into curry, into meat salan, chicken salan, whatever salan you have. You then let the salan soak the roti or the naan, and thereafterwards you then eat it one by one. So as mentioned in the hadith, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the best food out of all the food is tharid. And the virtues of tharid, the fazilat of tharid, is like the virtues of Hazrat Aisha radhiyallahu anha over all the other women in the world. So this is the hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said with regards to tharid. And also there are other hadiths regarding what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam liked to eat, as mentioned in another hadith also which can be found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam liked to eat rutab and kissa. Rutab means dates, khajurs, and also watermelons or cucumbers alongside the khajur, alongside the rutab. Now why would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam like that for? The reason why is because khajur or dates is a hot side dish. When somebody eats khajur, it makes his body warm. It makes the blood in his body warm. So to counteract that, to counterbalance that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would then eat cucumbers or would eat watermelon to balance the heat which has been created by eating the khajur and the dates. And this is something which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us 1400 years ago. And nowadays the doctors or the medical researchers, they say that yes, you shouldn't have too hot or chilly food, it's bad for you. And they also encourage that if you do eat hot or chili food, you go for a curry or you go for a balti or something like that, you should always eat or drink something cool or have something cool as well to counterbalance the heat of what you have eaten. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us the nuskha and the guideline over 1400 years ago that when you eat something warm or hot, then always counterbalance it by eating something cool. So as I was saying that there are certain foods which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam liked. Similarly, there were certain drinks which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam liked as well. And just very quickly, we will be looking at these three topics in today's lesson. Now, the first part I want to mention about drinks, the same way I mentioned regarding food that there are certain food which is haram. So you can't say, for example, consume swine. You can't consume, say, wild animals like tigers. You can't consume lions. You can't consume wolves because they are vicious animals. Again, these were touched on in the past couple of weeks. Similarly, there are certain types of drinks and ashriba which is haram and unlawful to consume. And in particular, as mentioned in all the books of hadith, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has prohibited from something which in Arabic is called khamr. And what does khamr mean? Khamr in English means intoxicants. So any drink which has nasha inside, any drink which has intoxication inside, then that drink is haram and unlawful. Whether it is called Carlsberg or whether it is called Carling or whether it is called Coke and it's got alcohol inside, it's got intoxicant inside, then that would be haram and unlawful to consume. Just remember this particular point that rules are not based on names, it's based on what is inside it. So even though you may have a non-sounding haram name like Red Bull or these kind of energy drinks, but if it's got alcohol inside, if it's got khamr inside, if it's got intoxicant inside, then that is haram, that would be impermissible. And there's actually a hadith with regards to that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has predicted this, that a time will come, i.e. now, before the end of time, Qurbe Qiyamah, where people would be changing haram things into different names and they will be legalizing it. So it'll be like alcohol, but they've given it a non-sounding haram name, like Coke or Cola or energy drink or something else, or energy drink when it comes to gyms or whatever, training. So people think, oh, it's lawful because I'm using it to train, I'm using it in the gym, so it should be lawful. So people would be legalizing these things. So then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has warned that when people start legalizing haram things, then wait for mass punishments to come. Wait for the earth to swallow these people up. Wait for them to be changed into monkeys and animals and swines, metamorphosis of the humans. This will happen when people start doing that. So as I was saying, that rules are based on what is inside, the ingredients, and it's not based on the names. Now just a few things with regards to khamr and alcohol. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran quite clearly says that, oh, those who believe, innamal khamru wal maisir wal ansab, that khamr, intoxicants, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's cocaine, whether it's spliff or whatever which takes a person's sanity away. So it could be something like Tipex or glue, but he's sniffing it and he's getting a buzz out of it. That also comes under khamr as well, because khamr literally means something which takes away your mind, where a person gets into a buzz, he's not aware of the people around him. He's like he's on such a high that he doesn't know what's right, what's wrong. He can't differentiate between a man and a woman. He can't differentiate between right and wrong. That literally is called khamr. So it doesn't necessarily have to be alcohol. It could be drugs. It could be, as I said, sniffing glue, sniffing Tipex, or anything else like that, injections, anything which is actually draining the mind. That comes under the word khamr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that khamr wal maisir, gambling. So again, gambling doesn't mean lottery only. but cash machine or there's fruit machines are okay. No, any form of gambling where you're paying something and the earning is going to be based on a chance that you're going to get either something extra, is based on a chance that you may get something extra or you may get nothing. So whether that means like betting on a football team, betting on horses, fruit machines, lottery, scratch cards, or any of these kind of competitions where you have to answer a question, and then to answer the question you need to phone this particular line and they charge you 150 per call, and then you getting the prize at the end is all based on chances that you may get the prize or you may not get the prize. That falls under gambling. So anything where you're basically the earnings or the prize is based on chances or is based on losses, then that comes under gambling. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that khamar, intoxicants, gambling, wal ansabu wal azlam. Ansab here means idol worshipping, wal azlam, i.e. divining arrows. Divining arrows is something which the Arabs would use to predict the future. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that all these four things, rijsum min amali shaitan. They are rijs. Rijs basically means filth, impure, napak, najas. The same way urine is impure. If it comes onto your clothes, you need to wash your clothes. If it comes onto your body, you need to wash that from your body. Similarly, if alcohol was to come onto your clothes, you need to wash that away. The same way, if alcohol was to come on your body, you need to wash that away. It's najas, the ghaliza. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, min amali shaitan. And these things, gambling, alcohol, intoxicants, idol worshipping, they are all works of shaitan. Min amali shaitan. It's shaitan uses it to cause, as mentioned in the next verse afterwards, al-adawata wal-baghdha, to cause enmity and to cause hasad and hatred between the people. Now there's another hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, al-khamru jumma'ul ithm, which means that intoxicants, it is the root of all evils. Jumma'ul ithm. Now what does that mean? It means that if shaitan, say for example, if he wants to incite someone to do something haram, if he wants someone to commit zina or commit adultery or to commit murder or qatl, he won't go to that person directly and say commit zina or commit murder or commit thieving or sarika or commit rape. He's not going to say it like that. But instead what he will do is that he will firstly try to incite that person to drink alcohol. Or not drinking alcohol, because again you get some Muslim youth, they think that okay, I'm not drinking alcohol, I'm just like taking drugs, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's far less than drinking alcohol. So what shaitan will do is that he may not approach you with alcohol or with go and take a lager or like a glass of beer or something. He may tempt you that take drugs. Try this particular cannabis out or take this particular injection. In that way he will incite you. And then when you take that tablet, when you take that injection, when you sniff whatever you're sniffing, and you then get into the high, that same high which you would have got if you had taken alcohol, if you had drank alcohol, you get the same buzz by taking drugs. So when he manages you to take drugs, when he incites you and when he manages to convince you to take drugs and you take it and you're on a high now, then the other sins is like a domino effect. When he's managed to tempt you to get that and take that, then the other sins, one after another, you'll be doing it. And that's why we see that many of the sins which comes about, it starts from alcohol or alcohol related things or intoxicants. Many of the, say for example, like adulteries in particular, that normally starts off when the man and the woman, they've been out on a Friday night, Saturday night, they've had a bit too much to drink, and the next thing you know, they're committing zina and adultery. many of the, say for example, stealing in particular, that normally happens when people say can't or don't have enough money to buy drugs. So what they do, they either mug someone, they rob someone, they steal from somebody's house, they steal from the shops, they steal from the banks, and then the money they get, they use it to buy drugs. When you look at most of the crimes in the UK or what is happening, it's all drug related or alcohol related or khamr related, intoxicant related. Either it's got to do with direct effect of taking alcohol, or direct effect or cause of taking drugs, or something related to that. That's where most of the crimes takes place. And that beautifully is explained under this hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that shaitan doesn't really tempt you by committing murder or rape or zina or qatl or this or that. The way he does it is by tempting you to take intoxicants, by taking alcohol, by taking drugs, by taking weed, by taking spliff or speed, whatever, and thereafterwards you then take it, and then you're on such a high that the other sins you haram said you don't realize that you're doing that, and then you start committing sins, you start committing zina, adultery, killing, anything related, you start doing these things. But the root of it, when we analyze it, is that it starts from al-khamru jumma'ul ithm. So because of that reason, the Sharia has said that anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being al-Hakim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being al-Hakim, the most wise, he knew that this is something which is very, very bad for the Muslims. Physically, it's very, very bad, because when you take alcohol, when you take intoxicants, when you take drugs, then it affects a person's body. You know, he could easily develop cancer-related illnesses. In particular, when somebody takes too much alcohol, it damages his lungs, it damages his heart, it damages the blood. And the same also when it comes to taking intoxicants like drugs, it damages a person's brain over the years and over time. So drugs, alcohol-related issues, physically they're bad, and also spiritually they're bad. Because as mentioned in the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that when somebody takes alcohol or drugs, then the hadith says that for 40 days his namaz will not be accepted. And this is not just for alcohol. Even though the hadith talks about alcohol, but it can also be related to any haram things which we consume. By mistake we ate pork or anything haram or meat which wasn't sacrificed properly and we ate that, then the same rule will also apply there as well, that for 40 days Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept our namaz. Fair enough, the farziyat of namaz may be done, but the thawab and the reward will not be given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that alcohol, khamr, intoxicant, these kind of things are unlawful and haram for Muslims to consume and Muslims to take. Now moving along to the next point I want to mention very quickly is with regards to some adabs and some etiquettes of drinking. Same way I mentioned some adabs and etiquettes or sunnahs regarding food and eating. So just very quickly and very briefly, some etiquettes regarding drinking. Now there are just two I want to mention very quickly. The first one is when it comes to drinking, we should drink in 3 sips. And when we are drinking, we should also make sure that we don't breathe into the cup. So actually there's 2 I'm mentioning here. So when we drink, we should take in 3 sips. So it shouldn't be like one glass, one time just like drink all of it. No. Take it in 3 sips. And also another sunnah, another etiquette which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned is that when you drink, then when you take a breather, then don't breathe into the cup, but instead breathe out. Now there's many wisdoms behind that, but in particular, let's look at the first one, that when you drink, don't drink in 1 sip. The reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has prohibited that is because it's very, very bad for your stomach. If you like just taking one sip down, let's say Coke, a glass of Coke, 1 sip, within a matter of 5 to 10 seconds you drink the entire glass of Coke, is bad for your stomach because at once it's like water coming into your stomach. So it'll be very, very bad for you. And also there's a danger that if you're going to take one sip and you drink the entire contents of the glass, it's very easy for a person to choke. So because of these reasons, because remember Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wasn't a prophet just to give rules and maslas that, pray namaz like this. He was also very mushfiq, very affectionate to the ummah. And he told us that, look, if you're going to drink one sip, one time, you're going to cause some problems. People sometimes could choke like that. It's going to cause some lasting damage to your stomach. So therefore, take your time when it comes to drinking. Don't need to do it like in one sip. Do it in 3 sips. So that is one etiquette. Also making sure that when you drink, you don't blow into the cup as well. It's also very unhygienic, because sometimes when you, in particular if you have been eating before and you blow into the contents, then some kind of germs from your mouth or bacteria from your mouth may then get into the cup, and then you could like drink it. So it may be like nuqsan there, it may be very difficult or detriment to your health. So that's another adab, another etiquette which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned. Another etiquette, but just very quickly, is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that when you drink in particular from bottles where you cannot see what's inside, so like say drink bottles in particular or cans in particular, then what you should do is that you should open it and then you should pour the contents into a glass and then drink from the glass. Now obviously, if say for example you're outside, you're on safar, you're on journey, there's no glasses available, fair enough, you can then drink direct from the can. But where, just say if you are drinking from a can at home, or say in the masjid where there may be some cups around, then the sunnah and the adab is that you pour the contents into a cup and then drink from the cup instead. And again, the reason why, because it mentioned a hadith of Musnad Ahmad, that once this Sahabi, he was drinking water from a bottle. And in this bottle, there was some insect inside. So when he was drinking it, then what happened was that the insect, it went down his throat and into his body, which caused him some pain and taklif. And even sometimes we hear these stories as well on the internet. Obviously, Allah knows best how true they are, but sometimes they say that in some Coke cans, there are some insects have been found, or dead kind of like a fly has been found. So if that is the case, then when we then obviously pour it into a glass of water, then we could check for ourselves that there's no insects or there's no flies or there's no these kind of things there. So we could then obviously throw it out and then drink the other parts of the drink. So that's that's the second etiquette. And the third one, just very quickly, is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that when it comes to drinking, the sunnah and the etiquette is that one should sit down and drink. Now, if somebody stands up and drinks, what's the ruling, what's the hukum regarding that? Now, the scholars have mentioned that the hukum regarding drinking standing up is makruh tanzihi, which is khilaf awla makruh tanzihi, I slightly disliked. It's not haram to drink standing up, but in particular for ulamas and for scholars, and also for respected elders in the community, it's best that you don't stand up and drink. Even though it's makruh tanzih, so it's not like haram what you're doing, but because of your azmat and your respect in the community, if you were to stand up and drink, then it'll lead to people like, saying things, or look at the Imam Sahib here, he's standing up and drinking, and because of that reason, people will talk behind your back, and in that way you could lose that respect and azmat which a alim or which a respected elder in the community has. And I'll just very quickly just mention a story here, because you may be thinking, no, it's only makruh tanzihi. What's the problem if a alim or a scholar does, why should people be talking behind his back? But I'll just give you an example. This hadith can be found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and Sunan Nasai. Some of you may have heard of this particular hadith, that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims conquered Makkah in 8th Hijri, and Baytullah came into the hands of the Muslims, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to extend the Baytullah up to and including the Hatim, because the Hatim, that's also part of the Baytullah. But the Quraysh, when they were constructing the Baytullah, they didn't have enough money to build this. So what they did was they just left it as it is, 4 corners, and the Hatim was left empty. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to extend the Baytullah up to and including the Hatim. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted that, he intended that, but then he thought to himself that what would the Quraysh, who had just recently converted to Islam after the conquest of Makkah, what would they say? They would start saying, oh, look at Prophet ﷺ, he's taken over the Baytullah, he's changing our ways. So because of that reason that people may talk behind Prophet ﷺ's back, what Rasulullah ﷺ did was that he refrained from extending the Baytullah up to and including the Hatim. So from this we can understand that fair enough, there may be something which is slightly disliked, and if you were to do it, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you think that by you doing it, it's going to cause some people to talk behind your back, then it's best in that situation not to do it. Again, it's not just for alims or ulamas or any respected elder in the community, that if people were to see you and saying, okay, well, he's doing something disliked here, but it may lead to people talking behind your back, and that could then lead to your waqar and azmat coming down, then in that situation it is best for you not to do that. Exactly same with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because if he wanted, he had control over the Baytullah. If he wanted, he could have easily extended it up to and including the Hatim. But fearing what people may say, in particular the newly converts of Makkah, the Quraysh, that, oh, look at Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's changing our forefathers' ways, because that was the main issue they had with Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the very beginning, that, oh, he's going against our forefathers' ways. Our forefathers would worship idols, he's worshipping Allah. So fearing what they may say, that, oh, he's going against another of our forefathers' things, i.e. the Baytullah. So therefore Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam refrained from doing that. So in a nutshell, this third adab or etiquette when it comes to drinking is that we should sit down and drink. And if somebody did stand up and drink, then it is makruh tanzihi, but it's best to refrain from it. May Allah give us the tawfiq to act on said wa akhiru da'wana.
What's the situation regarding medicines?